Hi again, everyone, and welcome in to Cincinnati Bengals Talk. I'm James Rapine, and yeah, the bye week might be here, but we're not taking a break. And the Bengals are 5-4, and I think that's probably better than what some of you had them. Certainly better than me. I had them at 4-5 at the bye, so they're ahead of where I thought they would be. But it does feel a little disappointing since they got off to that 5-2 start. They are in the AFC North cellar. Can they make a run? Will they make a run? How concerned should we be about Joe Burrow? What about the offensive line? What about the defense? Nicole Zembrodt, an allbengals.com contributor. I've been working with Nicole for a couple of years now. She's great. And she sat down with Joe Walter, who played for the Bengals for years and years and years, for more than a decade. The former offensive lineman was on the 1988 Bengals team that made a Super Bowl run and came this close to winning it. Well, Nicole was able to sit down with Joe to talk about those topics and so much more. So I hope you enjoy this interview, and we have a ton coming your way this week. So stay tuned, hit that subscribe button, and buckle in for a good interview with Nicole Zembrodt and Joe Walter.
Hi, this is Nicole Zembrodt with All Bengals, and I have today Bengals legend Joe Walter. Joe, thank you for joining me today.
Nicole, good to see you, kiddo. How are you?
Doing well. Wish we could be doing better after this week's disappointing loss against divisional rival Cleveland Browns. So it was an ugly game, 41-16. Defense's second consecutive game of 30 or more points allowed, missed tackles, 3 turnovers, pick 6 for the Browns. Joe Burrow pressured all day, sacked 5 times. Not pretty. How do the Bengals go from here? How do they just bounce back from such a disappointing loss? Not only this week, but back to back, because you throw in New York there too.
Right. It's one of those things. The good thing is we've got the bye week, right? So they've got 2 weeks to regroup, reset, get away from the game for a couple of days, and get the guys that are nicked up healthy again. So it's coming at a good time. The way they've played the last 2 weeks, a little bit concerning. However, we didn't think going into this season that we'd be 5-4 right now at the break, and that we'd be 2-1 in the division. I mean, that's big, right? And so, yesterday was comprised of 4 big plays. You had the 99-yard interception return. You had the big pass catch. I just lost the kid's name, the receiver, that was 60 yards. And then you had the 70-yard touchdown, and then the 18 yards first and goal at the 18, where they went backwards and they end up scoring. So you look at that game, you take away that interception, and we score. I think it's a totally different game at that time. And heck, really, Nicole, we came back after that interception, went right down the field and scored. Of course, then we turned around and let them go right down the field and score. So it's a typical AFC North battle. And, it was just their day. And I think that we've got to regroup. Am I concerned? Not overly. We've got 8 games left. They come back out of this bye. They're healthy, which is big. Is really big, especially in this league. So, a tough game coming up with Vegas, but, it's a winnable game for us if we show up.
You hit on the health there, and I think this has been the healthiest the Bengals have been in years, and it's clearly shown this year.
Yeah, that's, listen, they're a good young team, right? There's some things that they're going to look at. I think Burrow is a great, great quarterback. He's going to look at some of the film. They're going to break all this film down and have different situations, and he's going to see, in my mind, he's going to see that he targets Jamal Chase a little bit too much, right? So he's got some great weapons, and he's going to have to spread it around. And that's just what's going to have to happen with him. And that's the great thing about this bye week, because the coaching staff gets to look at all the analytics and the breakdowns and see what they're doing wrong and what they can fix. And so can the players, especially Joe, because I think he needs to open up a little bit and get the ball to the other guys.
And we're going to move to the guys up front. Offensive line has played up and down this season. We started a little rough with 10 sacks in the first 2 games, then not allowing a sack at all against Pittsburgh, and a relatively good stretch in October. And the last 2 weeks, giving up 8 sacks. What has been your impressions of this line so far?
I think Frank Pollack's done a great job with him, with what he's got, right? Jonah Williams he struggled a little bit yesterday. Riley Reef has played really well. The one that they're still trying to figure out that middle three, right? And they're still a young line. It's tough if you're not used to playing with each other. You don't have that cohesiveness yet. It takes some time to build that. And yesterday, heck, they had Adoniji, or he played at right guard. So then you got a new body in there, right? And so Hopkins has got to get used to him, and so does Riley. What level, when there's a twist, a stunt, anything like that, you've got to get used to each other. And back when I played, we had an offensive line. We played a long time together, so we didn't even have to talk. We knew what each other where they were going to be, what level, and it takes time. And I think that what Frank Pollack has had, he's done a great job, but it takes time for this line to meld. And the other part of that, in my mind, is when you only have a club med for training camp. They don't do the true two-a-days like we used to do. They have club med. They don't hit. They're in shorts, right? So those first 4 games of the season, first 5 games of the season, that's live action. So that's when that line starts to kind of get used to each other, figure things out. Heck, we're in game 9 and they're still figuring it out, but they've had different combinations. It hadn't been the same group, at least on the right-hand side, all season. It's been, they've been interchanging at guard. And so until they can figure it out, and I thought Adoniji did a great job yesterday. And which is a great sign, because I think if he continues to improve and play like he did, that's going to do nothing but help this offensive line and solidify in the middle, which is where they need the help.
A lot of guys were high on him coming in, and it'll add depth to a much needed. And it seems that Carmen might still be dealing with a little bit of his injury there. So definitely a little buffer there on the line. And you hit on Frank Pollack. He deserves a lot of credit for the improvements of this line. So as the team is going through trying to turn things around in Cincinnati, what does having a coach like Pollack mean to the offensive line and the team?
Well, I think really just knowing as an ex-player, knowing that your coach played, right? Mm-hmm. He knows what he's talking about. You trust him. He played, 7-8 years in the league. He's been coaching in the NFL ranks since 05, 06, 07. So he's been there and done that. So, you listen to him. He's got tricks of the trade. He knows different techniques and how to play. I think that does nothing but help a young offensive line, which is what we've got. I mean, they're really a young offensive line. And so it just brings that it brings that comfortableness for this offensive line, because they know he's been there and you trust him and he knows the techniques. I think I heard Jonah Williams talking about him and how much he liked him because he could teach him different techniques, but he can incorporate his own and make it work, right? So they've got a close bond. Linemen we're a different breed anyway. We're all pretty close with each other, right? So, knowing that he played, I'm sure it was a ton of fun, but he's also serious and he wants it done right, because his head's on the block too.
It seems like he really demands the room when he's there. And like you said, the guys respect him. And even Joe Mixon, with the way that Pollack has been able to help the running game, these guys really do respect what Pollack has to bring to the table.
Right. And it takes time, right? It's going to take time. I mean, as I alluded to earlier, we didn't think they'd be where they're at in this season right now. We knew this was kind of a rebuilding year. You know, Joe Burrow's played outstanding coming off a serious knee injury, came back in 10 months, 9 months, whatever it was. I mean, he's playing outstanding football. And, you know, I would have never thought he would have been back. I went back to when, you know, I had both of my knees reconstructed with ACL and you know, I watched Carson Palmer after he came back. He was slow to come back. So I initially thought, well, that's the way Burrow's going to be. It's going to be one of those years, right? Man, am I surprised? Absolutely. So, you know, I'm still thinking this is a rebuilding year, so to speak, because you got to get your offensive line caught up, and they're a young group, and they've only worked with Frank for a year or two. So, you know, because he left and then came back. So we're going to be okay. It's just everybody's got to have patience. It's going to be a really, really good team in the future.
A lot of people have already said, like, yes, the Bengals are in their rebuilding, but they're a year or two ahead of the rebuild. So that has a lot of hope for Cincinnati there.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. And I would have never thought our defense would have played as well as they've played, right?
Mm-hmm.
A good veteran group, but, you know, they've had a bad couple of weeks. It happens. The great thing is the bye. I keep going back to that. This bye week is going to be big for them. You know, they came off a long stretch of 9 games, 3 games on the road. This is a big time for them. This will help them big time. And so, and then with just all the talent that we have on the offense, I mean, the skilled positions is just incredible. So this could be a good team for years to come.
Right. And you have talked about Burrow. What are your impressions of him? I mean, he has been great. I think for me, it's crazy that he has come off the significant knee injury and he's played as well, but he always talks about that his legs are still, like, he's still getting used to it, and he's playing at the level that he's playing. Minus some of these interceptions, he's got to work on those, but he's still playing at a very high level.
Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes those interceptions have to happen for him to learn, right? You can get a little bit overconfident in your throws, and I think he's gotten that way a little bit and needs to kind of be reined in. It's not a bad thing. It's just part of the maturation process, right? But to come off and play the way he's playing off that knee injury, and you can see the confidence week in and week out, just how much more confident he's getting. But he's just got to trust the process, trust the plays, trust the other guys. Because if he starts to zero in on one guy, maybe two, that hurts you because you got other guys that are open. And I think that's the part that he's got to work on. And they'll figure that out and see that this week.
Do you think Burrow, with this young core, could be just as good, if not better, than the 88 team that you played on?
Come on now. Their offensive line would have to get much better to compare to that team. But the skilled positions are equal. I think, that would be I think their biggest thing right now would be that offensive line. To be able to compare them to the 88 team, they would have to be much better.
And we talk about the 88 team's offensive line. I mean, you guys were a brick wall. You have Anthony Munoz at left tackle, Bruce Reimers at left guard, Bruce Kazurski at center, Max Montoya at right guard, and you at right tackle.
Right.
What was it like playing with this group of guys?
You know what? It was a great group to play with. And you know, we all owe a lot, everything that we did, to Jim McNally. I mean, he was just the guru of line coaches. He knew it. He studied it. It was his life. It was his passion, and it oozed into the offensive line room and into the offensive line. Right. I mean, I can remember going through training camp, and we'd be on the field 45 minutes to an hour before practice would start, going through technique. And it wasn't just technique; it was steps, and it was one step at a time. And he would just grill you and grill you and grill you. And we had that type of group of guys and the mentality guys that we wanted to win. We wanted to be successful. And, you know, you look at that line, Nicole, you had first-round pick in Anthony. You had an 8th or 9th round pick in Reimers. 8th or 9th round pick with Kozerski. Max was a 6th round pick. I was a 7th round pick. And so you had a bunch of guys that had big hearts wanting to play and be successful, and smart guys. Everybody, we were all smart. Of course, every meeting and film session, we watched Anthony because he was so dadgum good. But, you know, we all owe everything to McNally. He's the one that really drilled in us, and he's the one that picked us and won us on the line. And it was just a great group of guys. We all got along really well. And, you know, playing next to Max Montoya, he's one of the greatest guards ever. And we never had any issues. We always knew what each other was going to do. And it was just a ton of fun. Great group.
Who was the toughest guy that you went against in your career? And that can be in a game or at practice.
Great question. And I like to answer it this way. Everyone. Everybody, they all had different things that they did. But if I had to zero in, I would have to probably say there were 2 of them. Actually 3. But the top 2 would have been Reggie White. He was a guy that you had to bring your lunch bucket. You had to play a perfect game, or you were going to be embarrassed. So he was number 1 toughest guy. And I think the next 2 would have been a combination of Howie Long and William Fuller that played for the Oilers. He was kind of my thorn in my side because he was a lot like Reggie, but shorter. So he had a shorter, lower center of gravity, which was tough on me being tall. So I would say those 3 guys were the toughest, but it was always a blast to play against it because you knew it was going to be a dogfight.
And you just named some of the greats in the defensive end, and you played along some of the greatest in Bengals history. What's it like finally seeing the Bengals organization honor these legends into the Ring of Honor?
You know, I went to that game for the first one with Anderson and Anthony going in because I played with those guys. And it's really about time. We needed to honor them, right? It's that time. And so, you know, I hope they take their time and not just fill it up to be filling it up. I hope they pick the right guys. But we needed something like that in this town. The city needed that. They need the recognition. I mean, because heck, unfortunately, we've only got 1 guy in the Hall of Fame. We should have 3, and we don't. And so this is the only other way to recognize those guys. And I thought they did a tremendous job with the first 4 that they've got in there. It's a great group, and I look forward to seeing what they do. I just hope they don't rush into it and, you know, and overdo it, so to speak.
Who would you like to see honored next year?
Wow, that's a great question. You know, I really don't know. It's a hard question. There's so many guys.
There are.
But I wouldn't know where to even begin or who it would be. I can't answer that question. I'm sorry. I have no idea. There's too many of them to name.
There's a plethora of them. There's just a lot of talent that make up Bengals history. And in the end, we both agree that we're just happy the organization is finally doing the Ring of Honor.
Right.
So one last question for you, and it's, how do you see the rest of the season going?
You know, I think if they can continue to stay healthy, you know, we've got a tough game coming out with Vegas. They're playing really good ball since they got rid of Gruden. It's a winnable game for us if we show up and play, right? And then we've got 3 home games. We've got, Pittsburgh and I forget who the other 2 are now. I looked at the schedule.
I want to continue. LA, Chargers, and 49ers.
Yeah. So, and those are games we can win, especially the 49ers. I think we can win that. I really believe that if we can somehow, some way put 4 or 5 more wins on the board, we can get there. Do I think we can do it? Absolutely. The great thing is that we've got Pittsburgh and Baltimore at our place. You know, we beat them at theirs, which is good. And to be at our home field, although we didn't look very good against Cleveland yesterday, but I think we can get that all turned around. And I truly believe that, this team is a 9-win team, maybe a 10-win team. And if they can do that, I think they get into the playoffs, and we'll see what goes from there. But I like this team. I think that they've got great veteran leadership along with a ton of youth, and the veteran leadership gets it. I mean, it's a total. You can just see the difference in the way that the team, the organization. It's not the same mentality. They've got a totally different mentality in the locker room, and that makes it exciting for me because they're not accepting the mediocrity. They get upset. I know it comes across as they are, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. But down deep, they're not okay. And they know they've got to right this ship. They've got 2 weeks to do that.
A lot of optimism from former Bengals player Joe Walter. Joe, thank you for joining me today.
Nicole, thank you, kiddo. Have a great day.